Welcome to the Filmmakers podcast. Huge congratulations. I mean, it's such an incredibly powerful series, and it's so hard to get dramas like this made. I constantly get told it's impossible, and there's such important stories that we need to tell. How are you both doing? Are you both incredibly proud, I hope, of what you've done?
Exceptionally, yeah.
I am. I watched it for the first time all in one sitting the other day, and I just never felt that necessity with a project before. I was like, oh my gosh, this needs to be seen, and we need to be having these conversations. So that is what I'm most proud of, that I get to be a little slice of something so vital.
And Stephen?
She's wonderful.
Great answer. Good answer.
Yeah. I mean it.
I'm very proud of it as a piece. You can imagine for me, it's a really interesting thing to see something come from in here, and then to watch the 4 episodes is mind blowing. Do you know what I mean? And to have that understanding that without Jack Thorne, who's a wonderful writer, and you've known Jack for years.
Yeah.
And you did The Virtues together.
Yeah, and This Is England, and
made me cry on that quite a few times.
Yeah, oh my, everyone.
Jesus, thank you very much. And Help, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've had a wonderful relationship. I think I've worked with Jack on 8 projects, really.
Wow.
All of This Is England, and the TV series as well. So there was no one else for me that could have, wrote it and helped me pull it out of my head. So I'm just exceptionally proud of it as a piece.
So let's talk about how you both sort of got involved, from you maybe on the idea sort of side and the development, and from you sort of getting cast and getting involved in such a, incredibly complex character as well.
As I've said before, I was reading an article, and it was a young boy who'd stabbed a young girl to death. And I just kind of, it rocked me to my core. And then a few months later, on the news, there was a piece on the news where a young boy, and they are boys, they're not men, do you know what I mean, had stabbed a young girl to death in a completely opposite end of the country. I'll be completely truthful, it really hurt my heart, really. And I just thought, why? What kind of a society are we living in today where this kind of thing has happened, do you know what I mean? And then from the context of, we knew we were going to make a one-shot series. We'd been asked to do that, so we knew we were going to do that. And then I just thought that this particular theme would make a really interesting drama, but try and flip it from the normal perspective. Do you know what I mean? And rightly so, in a conventional drama, you would see this point of view of the family of the victim. And rightly so, that's the normal perspective we would see. But this time I wanted to flip it. So I wanted to see the effect it would have on the family that's involved with it. And I wanted to eliminate those normal kind of, not cliche, because they are the reasons for why we would look at something like this from a normal conventional drama perspective. Whereas maybe his dad was violent, or mum's an alcoholic, or, Jamie was molested by an uncle or something like that. And I wanted to eliminate that and look at it from a different perspective. Do you know what I mean? A good, happy home, a hard-working father who's got his own business. He's a working class man who's worked really hard to get what he's got. Leaves the house at 6, doesn't get back till late at night and stuff like that. And mum's a really hard worker. Do you know what I mean? In my head, she works in the furniture department in John Lewis's. Do you know what I mean? She got a really good job, and then he's got a sister who's an A-level student. And to take that as our microcosm of this family, this nucleus of this family, and kind of see why this kind of thing would happen. And then maybe we're all accountable in many ways: family, school, social structure, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Politics, all of these things are responsible. And then also the influence elements that he can have in his bedroom and from his phone, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, role models and influences and the sort of, masculinity and vulnerability and the incel sort of side of things. It looks at it in a way that actually helps you understand. Because, usually you just hear horrible person stabs this person, they're the victim, and you don't know what's going on in the background.
The complexities.
Of
course, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And episode 3 was basically, I said to Jack, okay, so in episode 3, what I want you to do is we meet this child psychologist and we meet Jamie again and we haven't, maybe this is their fourth or fifth meeting. Again, in a conventional drama, you'd see it from the first time they meet each other. I said, and go away, Jack, and write me your version of a David Mamet play.
Okay.
And he was like, is that it? I went, yeah, there's your notes.
Just that, yeah.
And then
No
from
pressure.
the get-go, there was only one person who we wanted to play this role. Hannah, me and Hannah, straight away, we knew we wanted to play this role.
I mean, let's go into the role and maybe sort of lead from A to B, because that psychology scene, I mean, it's very rare on television to see something, or in film, or any moment, to watch performance that is that engrossing and stunning. Like the levels of being able to flip from one emotion to another emotion, and being able to react from fear to gaining your composure. I mean, there's so much in that. I really hope you win many awards. I mean, it's an acting masterclass. How do you prepare for that? What was your, how do you get involved in the project? And then how do you prepare for that insanely complicated, long scene that has so much in it?
I mean, to start at the beginning, we were working on another job, luckily enough, 1,000 blows. We were literally walking from the green room to set. And I remember being like, what are you working on at the minute? And you started talking to me about this project that you were writing with Jack Thorne, and it was going to be a one-shot thing. And I was like, this man is living the dream. And I just left it at that. And I was like, that's going to be incredible. I can't wait to see that. And then we wrap 1,000 blows. And a couple of months later, him and Hannah reach out and they're like, we'd like you to be a part of this thing. And I was, and still am, flabbergasted. They're just the most generous beings that I believe anyone will ever encounter. And if you do, then count yourself lucky, because they're just fantastic people. And so that's how it came into my life. And then I basically obviously read the script. I'd heard about it from them. They were like, it's essentially a chess match between these two people, and you're witnessing them try to understand one another and grapple with the realities of what's happening in that moment. So I knew that was the premise, but then I sat down, read the script, and knew I had to go and speak to a therapist. So I spoke to my old therapist, and kind of, I didn't want to dive. Basically, what I wanted to figure out was what it felt like to have that mental agility. Like, as you're saying, I think what I wanted people to witness was someone knowing their professional stance, but grapple with it at the same time. Like, essentially, I didn't want to be too good at my job, because otherwise you're just going to watch someone be a force field. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Because, I mean, you sort of have to go between someone that clearly, objectively is quite charmed by, on one side is quite a nice young man.
Yeah.
And then you're also grappling with, you're trying to get answers out and understand the fact that there's this disconnect between, he's done something really horrible.
Yeah. So exactly that. I wanted to bring in as many layers as I could, and fight against the cliche of a psychologist sat in a room asking questions. But also, I don't want to take full credit for it. Like, it's the writing, but also it's Owen Cooper, who is just unreal. And I would work with him for the rest of my life if I could. I never felt like I was working with someone who hadn't worked before, or someone who was 14 years old. Like, it just felt like being in the room with a seasoned professional. Like, I was held by him as much as as I was holding him, he was holding me. It was just an absolute 50-50 down the line, back and forth. And that was what you got to see. And that doesn't happen necessarily, even like in any job, you might not get that. So to get that with Owen, knowing the context of how he came to this role, is just, I'm so proud of him and happy for him that this project has, and hopefully will,
massively elevate
in the way that it will, because he deserves it.
Is it that kind of emotional intelligence and being able to go into those raw places? Is that kind of why you're interested in working together in the first place? Like, after that other project you sort of worked on?
Look, I'm in a very lovely position. I've been doing this for a little bit now, and I'm getting on a little bit in many ways. And I just want to work with wonderful people. Do you know what I mean? I want to work with people who are extremely talented, who really, understand the craft, and who are just wonderful on set. And you are one of them people. Do you know what I mean? And we've found another one of them gems in Owen. And I think that's one of the key elements of what we try to do with, from our aspect of Matriarch, and also from Warp and Phil and, Shaheen Beg, our wonderful casting director. We wanted to create an opportunity for a young lad and try and, maybe elevate him with a career. And Owen is one of those unique talents. I think he's a really unique talent. And hope, his mum and dad are wonderful. He comes from a really loving home, a really caring home. They're both so supportive. They're so proud of this young lad. You know what I mean? And he's absolutely smashed this role. His truthfulness and his authenticity was second to none. His decision making was phenomenal. And also the way he takes a note is unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? He'll play this note that he's been given so subtly and with such a beautiful backhand slice. Do you know what I mean? You don't even know it's coming. It's just wonderful. And I think we have managed to be able to create this opportunity for him. And now he's already, he's ditched us now. He's working with Margot Robbie.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
he
we've been
deserves
swerved.
all the credit he can get.
Yeah.
So a little bit, just we've got a couple of minutes left to sort of talk about maybe working with directors. Let's talk about Philip. How do you rehearse such long scenes? Because, we talked about notes, but like, how do you fit in the time to give notes when you're going for such a long time? And that sort of thing. Do you do like rehearsals? Do you do lots of read-throughs in advance? Like, what was that kind of process in advance of these big sort of marathon speeches?
Well, we rehearsed for longer than we shot.
A week.
We rehearsed.
Right.
So it was essentially choreography. Like, it's just everyone coming together from day one, being on the same page, so that you essentially, what Phil so expertly did was he made a team. Like, we were all kind of, I think
it's a 40 team.
It really is that. And he really understands that if one person doesn't like step up, the rest of us, like, so actually, like, what he made was a team, like one creative mind, so that, because naturally we're human beings, when it comes to doing the takes, some things are going to go wrong, or things aren't going to go the way you plan them. But actually what he was able to do and set the stage for was that being a positive thing, and teaching us to lean in and go, oh, okay, well, that's going to happen in take 4 then. We're going to take it down this route, and you're going to throw that at me. Okay, well, that's just going to be what happens now. And everything was a positive. Like, at the end of every take, whatever shifted, he'd come up to us individually and be like, I loved this. Like, everything he was just fueling the organic nature of this thing. And he understood that as actors, that's how you get the best out of us, is to let us make mistakes, try things, experiment and play. And he just set the stage for that.
And without sounding pretentious, do you know what I mean? Look, athletes have this moment of when they're in the flow. And I do compare it massively, this particular exercise, to a 40 team, because each one is a player, do you know what I mean? But in the mass, we can't do what we do without anyone. And I don't mean just as us as actors, I mean the crew. The phenomenal abilities of our crew is unbelievable, from Sarah, who's the first AD, who ran that ship like, it was military process.
It has to be, yeah.
It has to be. Matt, our wonderful DOP, do you know what I mean? And who was unbelievable, and a hell of a cameraman. And then what happens is, and Lee as well, who was our other cameraman, do you know what I mean? Because you need 2 cameramen, because they have to pass the camera to each other along the way. It has to be taken off the jib and, put onto it's unbelievable. But within that process, what happens is, and again, I don't mean to sound pretentious, but as an actor, you're in the most zen flow you can ever be, because as soon as he says action, you're completely absorbed and you're in it. And what you manage to do is you marry both disciplines. So you have that beautiful live spontaneity of theatre, but then you have the craft and the minimalism and the naturalism of film and television acting. So you bring both of those things together, do you know what I mean? And each and every single person is so immersed within what we're trying to do and our overall objective as a collective. And you do have that kind of, again, I don't mean to sound pretentious, but you do have a collective consciousness.
Yeah, you do. It feels that way.
And you're all going towards this one end goal, do you know what I mean? To achieve the best we can and to do the best we can of our possible abilities and bring it all to the table. So you don't leave anything behind. Do you know what I mean? And then especially with respects to the family, with me and Christine in that final episode, you go on a hell of a journey together. Do you know what I mean? And that's another thing that we wanted to do. We wanted to show different perspectives along this story.
Thank you very much.
I hope we've achieved that. Do you know what I mean? If anything, we want to create conversation in the house.
Yeah, and I think you've done an incredible job of that. And it's a very thought-provoking series, and it's definitely one that's emotionally resonant. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And huge congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Cheers, mate.